The rain came in fine needles, blurring the windshield, as a silver-grey pickup wound its way up the slick mountain road along the Oregon coast. Nathan Cole, a 41-year-old acclaimed interior designer and single father, was on his way home from his son's art class in Portland. In the back seat, 6-year-old Leo hummed the theme from How to Train Your Dragon, his small hands clutching a rolled-up drawing of a purple fire-breathing beast. Dad Leo said suddenly, pointing. "Smoke." "Look." Nathan's gaze shot forward. A dark plume curled up from behind the roadside pines just ahead, thick, unnatural, rising fast. Instinct took over. He eased the truck to the shoulder, put it in park, and turned to his son. "Lock the doors. Stay inside," no matter what he ordered. Nathan bolted out into the mist and mud, his boots slipping on the mossy incline as he followed the trail of smoke toward a rocky outcrop. What he found stopped his breath. A red convertible had veered off the road and landed nose down in the brush just below the cliff. The front end crumpled and burning. Orange flames licked up the hood. Inside the car, barely visible through the shattered windshield. A woman. Her white dress, a wedding dress, was torn and singed. Blood matted her hair, and worse, a rusted iron chain was looped around her chest, binding her to the steering wheel. Her arms were strapped tight. Her head hung forward. "Oh my God," Nathan whispered. He leapt toward the driver's side, tried the door, it was jammed, shattered the remaining glass with a rock. As he reached inside, the woman stirred weakly. "Please," she gasped. Eyes fluttering open, green irises wide with terror. "Don't let them take me back." Nathan didn't stop to ask questions. The fire had begun to crawl across the dashboard, the heat searing. He pulled out his utility knife, sawing at the straps around her wrist, but the chain around her torso wouldn't budge. "Hang on." He choked, coughing through the smoke. "I've got you." With a final grunt, he threw his weight against the chain until something snapped, a weld giving way. He grabbed her under the arms and dragged her out just as the flames exploded behind them. They tumbled onto the wet earth together, his arms shielding her body as debris rained down around them. In the distance, Leo was screaming from the truck. Sirens began to echo from the road above. Nathan looked down at the woman, her bloodied face inches from his own. Her lips trembled with breath, her skin clammy and scorched. "You're safe now," he whispered. "But whatever hell you came from." He looked back at the burning wreck. It's not over yet. The lake house stood quiet beneath a grey morning sky, mist curling off the water like a breath half held. Nathan stepped into the guest room with slow, measured steps. He carried a tray soup crackers, a glass of water, and set it down on the nightstand beside the woman lying in the bed. She looked fragile against the white sheets. Her arms bruised bandages wrapped around her ribs and wrists. Her hair was tangled skin pale, and the burned edge of lace still clung stubbornly to her shoulder. She had not spoken since the hospital. Not since he brought her here. Nathan watched her for a moment, uncertain. Then quietly, her eyelids fluttered. A flicker of awareness returned to her face. Her voice was a rasp. "Where am I?" "You are safe," Nathan said gently. "This is my home. You were in a car crash. I found you on the cliffside road and got you out before." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. She tried to sit up. Her body rebelled, but he helped her with slow, patient hands. "Who am I?" she whispered. Nathan hesitated, then shook his head. "You have not remembered yet. That is all right. You do not need to rush." There was silence. She stared at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. Then her gaze shifted to him. "And you?" Nathan Cole, my son and I have been looking after you since that night. As if summoned, the door creaked open and Leo peeked in his arms wrapped around a large stuffed fox. That is her, Leo said in a hush. The lady from the fire. Nathan turned. Leo, remember what we talked about? Soft voices. Leo tiptoed in, wide-eyed and curious. He stood beside the bed and asked with the directness of a child, "Can I tell you your name?" The woman blinked, confused. Leo beamed. "I call you Fire Lily, because you came from the fire and lilies grow again after storms." To their surprise, she gave a faint smile. Just the smallest curve of her lips, but real, the first since she had arrived. Nathan felt something shift. A door, perhaps, not fully open but unlocked. In the days that followed, Fire Lily, as Leo continued to call her, began to recover. She still did not remember her name, or where she had come from. But muscle memory returned. She knew how to make tea. She hummed lullabies. Her hands folded blankets with practiced care. She avoided mirrors and flinched at sharp noises. She woke from nightmares she could not describe, trembling and breathless. Nathan did not pry. He gave her space, but never let her feel alone. Leo, however, had no such caution. He brought her drawings, held her hand in the garden, whispered secrets about the ducks by the lake, and why he thought stars could hear wishes. And sometimes when the sun set and the water turned gold, she would sit on the dock with them bare feet dipped in the cold and allow herself to laugh. But the past, even when forgotten, has a way of whispering back. One afternoon they visited a local grocery store. It was her first trip outside the house. She wore a loose sweater and jeans Leo had picked out, insisting princesses wear comfy clothes too. The store was bright. Music echoed overhead. Carts clattered past. She clung to the handle of their cart, eyes wary. Nathan kept close. Leo wandered only a few steps away, drawn by a display of plush animals. She glanced down at a cereal box. Just for a moment. When she looked up, Leo was gone. Her heart stopped. "Leo," she called, voice tight. Nothing. She dropped the items in her hands and ran. Fluorescent lights blurred above her. Faces passed like smudged paint. She turned corners, breath catching in her throat. Then she saw him. A man in a grey hoodie bending down toward a child. A sound tore from her throat. "Get away from him!" She charged, arms shaking. The man looked up, startled, just a store worker handing out samples. But to her eyes, he was something else. Someone else. Hands, screams, locked doors. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Leo ran to her, hugging her tightly. "I am here," he whispered. "I am right here." Nathan found them moments later. He knelt beside them, gathered them both in his arms. She looked up at him, face wet with tears. "I thought I lost him. I thought I lost him, and I could not breathe." Nathan did not speak. He only held her tighter. He understood then. This was not just memory loss. It was grief. Trauma. Real and raw. And whatever world she had escaped from it was not finished with her. Not yet. The lake mist was thicker that week, curling through the trees like smoke, clinging to the porch steps and hanging low over the still water. Fire Lily sat on the window seat in the guest room, knees tucked close to her chest, her eyes distant. It had been a week since the incident at the grocery store. Since she had screamed in a stranger's face and collapsed, clutching Nathan's son like a life raft. She remembered the shame, the loss of control, but worse, the memory it had triggered a flash of something sharp and terrible. A metal door slamming shut, screams behind concrete walls, a man speaking a language she did not understand. Her wrists bend, and always the smell of flowers, roses maybe, or lilies. She did not tell Nathan, not yet. But that night, she stood by the back porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and said softly, "The rain reminds me of something, of a place." Nathan stood beside her. "What kind of place?" "A house. Big, stone walls, tall windows, but I was never allowed to open them." She paused. There were men in suits. I never saw their faces clearly. One of them. He smiled when he spoke, but I never believed it. He said I was special. He said someone would choose me. Nathan felt the air shift. Choose you for what? Her grip on the blanket tightened. I don't know. I just know they put me in a white dress and called it my final gift. She turned to him, and for the first time her eyes were full of dread. I didn't choose that dress, Nathan. I didn't want to be in that car. And I don't know how I got out. Nathan exhaled slowly. The quiet between them was thick with what had not yet been said. "Do you remember your name?" he asked. She closed her eyes, then opened them again. "Sylvie. My name is Sylvie Monroe." Nathan called the private investigator the next morning. He had kept the business card tucked in a drawer since the hospital. He gave them what little he knew: the custom wedding dress Sylvie had been wearing, the chain, the unregistered car. A few days later, the file arrived. Nathan sat in his office, the folder unopened in front of him, for a long time. When he finally lifted the cover, what he saw turned his stomach. The dress was traced back to a high-end bridal boutique in New York. But the order had come from an anonymous client, traced to a closed warehouse in Nevada under quiet federal investigation. The VIN number of the crashed car, purchased with cryptocurrency. No legal owner. And at the bottom of the report, a sentence that made Nathan clench his fists. She may have been part of an international trafficking operation. Groomed, sold, disposed of. He closed the folder and stared at the hallway door. Sylvie was out there. With Leo. With the sunrise on her face and a child's laughter in her ears. She was beginning to smile again. He could not tell her. Not yet. Not until she remembered on her own. Not until he could protect her from the weight of what remembering might mean. That night, Sylvie stood in the kitchen watching the storm roll in over the lake. The tea in her mug had gone cold, but she didn't move. Nathan stepped beside her. "You all right?" She did not answer at first. Then she said, "I dreamed of fire again, only this time I was not afraid of it." Nathan waited. There was a man in the dream. I think he was real. His name was Darian. He said I belonged to someone, that I had been chosen, that the dress would be the last beautiful thing I would ever wear. She looked at Nathan, her eyes glassy. "Someone paid for me, didn't they?" Nathan did not lie. "I think so." Sylvie nodded slowly. "I want to remember, even if it hurts." He touched her shoulder, firm and steady. "Then we remember together." The days that followed were tense, as if the lake itself sensed something was coming. Sylvie moved through the house more quietly now, as though the walls were listening. She had begun writing her memories in a notebook, small, shaking lines scrawled at dawn when the nightmares woke her. She didn't share the pages with Nathan, but he knew. He could see it in the way she flinched at sudden noises, the way she studied Leo when she thought no one was watching, as if reassuring herself he was real. One evening, as the storm clouds rolled in again, Sylvie stood by the window while Leo coloured on the floor with crayons. "The man from my dreams," she said softly. His name wasn't just Darian. He had another name, a title, I think. They called him the Broker. Nathan, sitting at the table nearby, froze. Are you sure? She nodded. He said I'd be delivered, that I was perfect, that no one would come looking for me. She wrapped her arms around herself. But he was wrong. Nathan walked over and took her hand. His voice was quiet but firm. No one is coming for you again. Not while I'm breathing. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside, slamming branches against the roof. The lake churned darkly beneath the moonlight. He sat in his office, the investigator's file spread across his desk. Names, photos, flight paths. A note from the final page echoed in his mind. There is a ring. International. They sell women customized, trained, brides for the highest bidder. You're Jane Doe. Sylvie, she ran. Nathan went to the hallway and checked every lock on every door and window. At midnight, something on the security feed made him pause. Movement. In the backyard. A figure. Tall. Hooded. Watching. Nathan opened the gun safe, took the handgun, and stepped out into the cold. The wind stung his face. Rain soaked through his clothes in seconds, but he moved like a ghost through the wet grass. He spotted the intruder near the tree line. The man turned, saw him, and ran. Nathan gave chase, across the lawn, through the gate. His boots pounded the mud, tree branches clawed at his arms. The man vanished into the forest. Nathan stopped panting, heart pounding. When he turned back toward the house, something in him twisted. The front door was open. Inside, Sylvie stood barefoot in the foyer, holding Leo in her arms. She looked up at Nathan, fear wide in her eyes. There was someone outside, she whispered. Nathan closed the door and locked it behind him. They found me, she said. No, he replied, walking to her. They do not get to take you again. Sylvie clutched Leo tighter. Her voice dropped to a whisper. What if they take him instead? Nathan looked at her, soaked to the bone, but more determined than ever. Then we end it, he said. She looked at him for a long moment, and then quietly, I want to face him. I want to stop him. Nathan stepped closer, touched her cheek. We do it together. The estate sat nestled deep in the Oregon hills, far from paved roads or cell towers. From above, it looked like a retreat, a private sanctuary for the wealthy. But inside, it was anything but peaceful. Behind the manicured gardens and stone facade were locked doors, security cameras, and silence too perfect to be honest. This was where Sylvie had once been held, and now she had returned. Dressed in a simple white gown, clean, modest, and eerily similar to the one she had once been forced to wear. Sylvie stood at the edge of the gravel drive, a small transmitter stitched into the lining of her dress near her collarbone. Nathan's voice had been the last thing she heard before the car doors opened. We're right here. We won't let him touch you again. A black car rolled up. The man who stepped out wore a charcoal suit and a thin, polite smile. Darian. She felt the air thicken. Well, he said smoothly, the runaway bride returns. He did not recognize the wire. He did not see the fear she hid behind calm eyes. He simply extended a hand. Sylvie took it. Inside, chandeliers sparkled. The floors gleamed. It was all as she remembered, and yet it felt different now. She was not a girl anymore. She was not prey. She was the match about to light the fire. Darian led her into a private lounge, poured wine, and spoke of disappointments, of trust, of obedience. Sylvie listened, smiled. And when he said, "You were always meant to belong," she looked him in the eye and replied, "Then test me." It was the signal. Outside, black SUVs moved in. FBI agents swarmed through the woods and burst through the gates. The chaos was immediate. Sylvie wasted no time. She grabbed a fire extinguisher and slammed it into the nearest door lock, flinging it open. Inside, two girls stared back at her wide-eyed. "You're free," she whispered. "Go. Now." She ran to the next room, and the next. Screams echoed down the halls. The sound of boots, gunfire in the distance, agents calling out names. Darian had vanished. Sylvie searched the upper corridors, heart pounding. And then she heard it. A voice behind her. "You think I would not prepare for betrayal?" She turned. Darian stood at the end of the hall, gun drawn. "You were a good investment," he said. "Until you weren't." Sylvie backed up, breath shallow. "You can't run forever." "I'm not running," she replied. "Not this time." Downstairs, Nathan had pushed his way through the main hall, helping agents cut through restraints and break down locked doors. He carried Leo's stuffed fox in his pocket, a reminder of what he was fighting for. He turned the corner just as Darian raised his weapon towards Sylvie. Without hesitation, Nathan lunged forward. The gunshot split the air. Nathan fell hard, the bullet tearing through his side. Sylvie screamed, catching him as he collapsed. Darian stepped closer, raising the gun again. But it was too late. Agents surged forward from both ends of the hall. Darian was tackled to the ground, restrained, shouting threats that no one would ever believe again. Sylvie cradled Nathan's head in her lap, tears streaming down her face. "Stay with me," she pleaded. "You don't get to leave me now." Nathan winced, trying to smile. "That dress still looks better on you than the last one." She laughed through the tears, forehead pressed to his. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you take a bullet for me?" His voice was thin, but steady. "Because you're the first thing I've let myself believe in, since everything fell apart." She held his hand as medics swarmed in, as Darian was dragged away, screaming as sirens howled and the night cracked open with noise. And somewhere among the ruins, the first light of morning began to rise. The hospital smelled like bleach and rain. Nathan drifted in and out of sleep, tethered to machines that beeped softly with each breath he managed to take. For days he had hovered between waking and pain. But when he finally opened his eyes for real, the first thing he saw was her. Sylvie sat beside him, her hand wrapped around his. Her hair was loose, her eyes were tired and red, but when she saw him stir, she smiled. "You're awake," she whispered. He blinked. His throat was dry. "You stayed." She leaned forward, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "Of course I stayed. You found me when I didn't know I was lost. You held me together before I remembered who I was." Nathan tried to sit up, winced and fell back. She reached for something in her bag, her smile growing. "I brought you something." From beneath a folder of hospital forms, she pulled out a small, delicate loop. Nathan squinted, confused. It was made entirely of paper, twisted into a ring. He looked at her. "A paper ring." She nodded. Voice soft. "It's a chain. But this time I'm giving it to you, because it's not meant to trap me. It's my way of saying, I choose this. I choose you." Nathan stared at her, overwhelmed. "You're proposing to me?" Sylvie laughed quietly, tears in her eyes. "Yes. I'm proposing to you, Nathan Cole, not because you saved me, but because you saw me and still wanted to stay." He smiled through the pain. "You'll have to let me top that when I can walk again." She pressed her forehead to his, her voice a breath. "You have time." 2 weeks later, the lake house bloomed with sunlight. Nathan returned home walking slowly with a cane. The bullet had missed anything vital, but the recovery was long. Still, he smiled when he stepped through the door. Laughter greeted him. In the living room, Leo was curled in Sylvie's lap, wrapped in a blanket. She was reading him a picture book about knights and storms and dragons. Leo spotted Nathan first. Dad. He ran across the room, hugging him tight. Nathan groaned and laughed. Hey, buddy. Sylvie stood. There was something different in her now, less shadow, more light. Leo turned to her and said for the first time, Mum, come here. Sylvie froze. Then she walked toward them. Nathan opened his arms, and she stepped into the embrace. And just like that, they were a family. That evening they stood on the back porch as the sun dipped below the lake, casting golden light across the water. Nathan held Sylvie's hand, and she held Leo's. I used to think, she said, voice low, that love was something fragile, like glass. Once broken, never whole again. She looked at Nathan. But I was wrong. Sometimes love is what puts the pieces back together. He leaned into her gently. Any thoughts on a honeymoon? Sylvie grinned. Anywhere, as long as it's not in the trunk of a burning car. Nathan laughed, and Leo looked up, puzzled. What's so funny? Nothing, Sylvie said, kneeling beside him. We're just happy. For the first time in a long time, that was the whole truth. The night air was still. Nathan stood barefoot in the sand, with Leo beside him, both holding lanterns made of thin rice paper. Sylvie knelt nearby, helping Leo light the small flame inside his. They were alone on the lakeshore. No guests, no ceremony, just 3 people standing beneath a sky full of stars. Make a wish, Sylvie whispered. Leo squeezed his eyes shut, whispered something into the wind, and let go. The lantern rose slowly, a warm golden orb, drifting into the darkness. Sylvie lit hers next. She held it for a long moment before releasing it. Then she turned to Nathan. This is what I want, she said. Not the dress, not the house, not even the name they tried to make me forget. Just this. She glanced at Leo, then back to Nathan. This peace, this family, this freedom. Nathan nodded. You have all of it. Always. Sylvie reached into her pocket and pulled out the small paper chain again, the one she had once offered in a hospital bed. I kept it, she said softly, not as a reminder of pain, but because I finally understand what it means. Nathan took her hand. A promise, he said. Exactly, she replied. Together they lit the last lantern and let it rise. They watched it float upward, joining the others in the sky, little glowing moons carrying their wishes. Sylvie leaned her head on Nathan's shoulder. I spent years thinking no one would ever come for me, that I was disposable, that love was something other women got to have, not me. Nathan pressed a kiss into her hair. You weren't saved, he said. You saved yourself. I was just lucky enough to be there when you did. Leo yawned, leaned against his father's leg. Sylvie looked down at the boy, then back up at the sky. I used to think chains only came in iron and locks, she murmured. But sometimes they're made of fear, of silence, of believing you don't matter. She paused, her voice steady. But I broke mine. And I won't wear them again. Not for anyone. The 3 of them stood in silence, arms around each other, the glow of the final lantern casting soft light across their faces. Above them, the sky was filled with flickering points of light, lanterns, stars, beginnings. And as the last one disappeared into the distance, Sylvie whispered the words she had once never believed she would say out loud. I am free.